Hey guys, what's up? It's John Stark from BackToTheMovieGuy.com, and yesterday I released my worst performances of the year, and it has 0 views. So I don't expect this video to blow up. I'm a blind film critic, so I decided to do something really different. Now, for performances, I actually did kind of keep a list, and technically I did keep a list for worst films of the year. I haven't revisited it. To me, a bad film is not just a film that's forgettable, that is just sort of like, oh, what was that? I mean, like, there are films that I'm going to be looking at later on in my life and be like, did I see that? I have it written down that I saw it. I scored it on IMDb. What was that movie about? Like, I'll have those films. Bad films are the ones that at the end of the year, I'm sitting here and I'm going, I'm still mad. I'm still angry that I saw it. I know what my pick for worst film of the year is, and I'm going to try to get there. But these are my picks. I don't know how many we'll get, but these are the films that still to this moment, I feel like bear mentioning as being the worst of the year. I guess I'll start off on the list and talk about a little film called Love Accidentally, which was Freevee tried to do an original movie this year, and my first indication that the film was garbage should have been the fact that Freevee is essentially Amazon. So if Amazon didn't want to put their Amazon stamp on it, and they put it on Freevee, warning, warning, warning. It's yeah, it was a dreadful film. It didn't make any sense, and I hated every moment of it. I still remember it, and I wish I didn't. It's everything that's wrong with copying romantic comedy tropes, but not knowing why you're copying them, and just sort of trying to paste together some sort of thing and being like, oh, well, charisma, and you got to understand why these films work. You can't just make them. And Netflix tried to do that a lot this year. God, they sent so many girls off to Europe in films. Like Love at the Villa, the Leighton Meester movie, The Weekend Away. There were like at least 3 or 4 films that were just an American goes to Europe, and they just kept like repurposing that format, and this was like a new girl. I'm going to Europe. Cool. Love and Gelato. That was another one. So they just kept reusing that format. But Love Accidentally it's the same. It copies sort of that same gross, and it just doesn't. It never worked. To that end, I have to mention After Ever Happy, which I don't know. Is it part of the After movies? The only reason that this really bothers me is first of all, the acting was really bad, but I love the fact that at the end it says "to be continued." Now, this is a film that to me to my knowledge, lacks audio description, and its stars are non-existent. The biggest stars that it has are like Stephen Moyer and Mira Sorvino in supporting roles, but the actual lead actors, I have no idea who they are. So I don't know what's happening with that film. If it's part of the After series, which somehow manages to continue to make films despite the fact that I don't even think they've been going theatrical. I don't know why this is why or where or what is happening with this franchise. But if this is part of that franchise, please stop. This is not. It's unnecessary. They're not good, and nobody can act. So that has made my list of just abysmal films I've seen this year. Speaking of another abysmal film that started off the year, I think it was my first film. Was this film my first? This is my first or second film of 2023, which is never a good sign. Brazen. God, That Alyssa Milano S&M murder mystery thing was so terrible. Oh, I did. I put her on my list, and maybe that was unfair of worst before. But God, if she hadn't been in that film, nobody would have cared. It would have just been this thing that just farted out into the universe, and nobody had to see it. But everybody was like, "Oh, Alyssa Milano's in it. Let's check it out." And so many people had to watch Brazen, and it was just, it was predictable, it was dumb, it was cliche. It thought it was tawdry, but I don't know, the whole thing was just, I don't even know. It was really just, I wish I never saw it. And at the same time, I'm gonna throw in there a film that I saw also at the top of the year that I've hated, and I tell people I hate it. It's The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. This film is atrocious. Um, Not saying I didn't even like the last Ice Age movie that was released theatrically, Collision Course, I believe. I didn't like that movie at all. Um, and I thought that was going to be like the franchise killer. And then lo and behold, Disney gets the rights, and they're like, "Well, we can make more Ice Age movies." Fine, I guess, but God, having to sit through a film where they hire actors who sound like Ray Romano, who sound like Dennis Leary, who sound like John Leguizamo, was so cloying, and very just I don't know. It was even worse because like the only person who actually was the original voice cast was Simon Pegg, which um, I'm he he must need money. Um, so he was the only person that actually came back from the original voice cast. One person. At least with Hotel Transylvania 4, they only lost Adam Sandler and Kevin James, and they retained everyone else. So it was like only two characters that were distracting, which is why it's not on my worst list of the year. But Ice Age was just, I don't know. And speaking of bad impersonations, I'm going to throw Hot Take in here, which you would think would be my worst film of the year. It's not. It's if this was in order, um, it would be number two. This is technically like my runner-up, but I'm talking about actors pretending to be other actors, and the abysmal work in this film where they found a bunch of unknown actors, and you've got some dude who at best does Johnny Depp impersonations at a party, but he does them by like a line. Like he can do like a Johnny Depp line from Pirates, and then somebody's like, "Oh, dude, you should do that John. You should do Johnny Depp in this movie I'm shooting." Okay, you know. His accent kept slipping all over the place. It was constantly evolving. It was so annoying, and the Amber Heard actress did had no idea how to play Amber Heard, because she doesn't have like a really specific uh, voice. You know, it's not like she was asked to play like Jennifer Tilly. So it's just. Uh, it was a film that was rushed out. The film came out like literally like a month after the results of the trial. So they were like shooting it concurrently with the trial. Like I'm sure they were writing the script as the trial was happening. So it was just really gross. It was like either a Tubi or a Roku movie or something. It was original. I don't know. It was garbage. Um, so that's at the bottom of my list. Now we need to talk about. Uh, I don't know. Do I have any other tiny little shitty movies maybe you didn't see? I really hated Rescue by Ruby. I hated it because it was dumb. I mean, I love Grant Gustin, and I wish he would have a really successful career. The film was dumb. There were points in the film where he was just, and he's out there and he's looking for her and he's like calling for her, and she just like happens to be under that bridge. You know, she just happens to find. It's one of those films that like everything just magically works out, and it's so stupid. And he's just got like hot dogs in the car. It's just I don't know. There was so many films. I remember going my review when I was pointing out all of the really bad writing that was in the film that made no sense. So I'll throw Rescued by Ruby up there because that's been bothering me for a while. Now you would think that there's some films this year that people have crapped on. I didn't hate The Bubble. I actually found The Bubble to be somewhat hilarious at times. Um, it was one of those bonkers concepts that kind of worked, but not all the way. But it did have moments that made me laugh, that made me giggle. The film that they were shooting was so horrendously stupid that every time they actually did scenes from it, I was actually laughing. So I can't completely fault Judd Apatow and say, "Oh, you've completely failed." Is it his worst movie? Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, he's a good director. So The Bubble is his, but it's not. I mean, God, I saw. Uh, I'm at 275 films. So, no, it's not. It's nowhere near the bottom of the list. Um, Morbius it's on the lower half of my list, but um, there were things that I liked about it. First of all, I just liked the fact that it forced Jared Leto to be normal. Jared Leto seems to always go after films where he has to have some sort of weird accent or like a ton of prosthetic makeup to make him look like indistinguishable. And at least there are parts to his character where he just had to be regular, like a regular dude. Obviously, there were other parts where, you know, crazy shit was happening, but um, there was something really nice about reminding the world that Jared Leto just can be Jared Leto. I just Moonfall was stupid, but we all knew Moonfall was going to be stupid. I, it's, I mean, like, I could put the film on the list because I thought it was dumb. Um, and it has a lot of dumb plot points, but it's close. It's not there yet. I do really want to talk about a film that I've been angry at since I saw it, and that's Halloween Kills. Halloween Ends. Uh, Halloween Ends was atrocious, and every person who stands up for that film and tries to tell me otherwise, I just immediately make like a mental note of don't let them recommend films to me. That may sound unfair. You may be somebody who's like, hey, I like that film, and it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you, but you don't end the franchise of a film by, you know, shoving your your series long killer to the to the back. What is his fight scene with Laurie? Michael's fight scene with Laurie is like 5 minutes of the film. Like it's the thing that we're building up to, and it barely happens. Like the whole film is just like Corey killing people, and then Corey doesn't even survive to like carry on the legacy. Like it's just the whole film is stupid and pointless, and it's full of bad acting in the ensemble. Like the little roles, like I don't know who they found, but there was, some people were given lines. It's like, are you somebody's cousin? Like, how did you get in this film? There was some lady that was like yelling at Jamie Lee Curtis as she came out of a grocery store, and her line delivery was just so, like, I was like, you are not a member of SAG. I can tell that. I can tell that you are here nepotistically, or you are actually a woman outside of a grocery store. One of two things happened. You actually just happened to be there, and you actually just yelled at Jamie Lee Curtis. And they filmed it, and they kept it. They were like, I don't know who that was, but she's in our film now. Um, it was, everything about this film was terrible. I hated everything about it. I thought it was so dumb, and he the scene where he finds, I don't even understand. I don't understand the film. He finds Corey, saves Corey, brings Corey in. Corey wakes up, and then he tries to choke Corey to death. And what is the point of that? That is so off-brand for Michael Myers. They were trying to go for some weird story arc here, but it didn't work. None of it worked. And also, Corey fell from quite a height. by the way, and just retained no injuries. It was just like, yeah, I'm good. What happened? I fell from the bridge and hit concrete. Did you break anything? Nah, it's a movie. Uh, of course I didn't break anything. Just what a fuck it. So yeah, Halloween ends. Thank God. Thank God it ended. And the funny thing is, I love the first one. I love David Gordon Green's first one. I think it's great. Um, I don't know what happened after that. Um, so we're down to what else? Texas Chainsaw Massacre was dreadful. It was absolutely atrocious. It was the film. I just at a certain point in the film when you have this guy who literally looks. I can't. I can't get past the scene where he goes onto the bus, and the guy's like trying to cancel him. He's like, "You're canceled, bro. I'm live streaming." I was like, "Oh my god." Just like, oh, I know we're supposed to not like these characters, but Jesus. Like, oh my, oh my god. Oh. There were people who liked that film too, and they were like, yeah, it was really good. And I was like, oh my, who are you people? Why do you exist? Watch better movies. Please watch better movies. Um, yes, yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was just an abysmal film. I hated what Disney did to the Night at the Museum franchise. That was unnecessary. Uh, I don't know. It's in my bottom. I'm just gonna mention that. I'm just gonna say Night at the Museum. It came to my head. This is stream of consciousness. I really did not look at my films. I'm trying to think of literal films that actually I was like, oh my god. I didn't hate Jurassic World, Fallen Dominion nearly as much. Is it great? No. Uh, it, no, it's not. But there was enough in it that I enjoyed. So it ends up being like mid pack performer for me for the year. Um, yeah, there were some films. You know what? I skewed some films. I looked at my grades cohesively, and I definitely did grade films correctly. I just kind of had started getting back into reviews this past year, and I started off the year, and I was like, "Bam, this is my first grade. Bam, this is my second." You know, and I just and then by the end of the year, I was looking at my grades and I was looking at the people that were in a certain grade group, and I was like, well, that should be lower and this should be higher. So some films were not, and then later on, I feel like I gave films a pass, and some films have still bothered me, and I didn't rate it as low as I should have, but Snow Day was terrible on Paramount Plus. The Snow Day musical reboot. I don't know why we remade Snow Day. They're like, oh, it's a comedy classic. And I was like, no, it's not. It's not a comedy classic. It would be like if Disney remade Max Keeble's Big Move. Like, yeah, for some kids who grew up then, it might be a film they watch, but it's not a classic. You know, it's a film that came out. You know, you have to know the difference between what actually is a classic and what's not. And when you try to hype up the film and you're like, oh, and it's a musical. But it's not really a musical. In the film, that music was not constantly through the film. They just kind of sang every once in a while. It was very bizarre and I hated it. I did tank some reviews of films because from my perspective, audio description, they were unwatchable. And that was like Murder at Yellowstone City was unwatchable. I originally hadn't started using that as a grade, but I gave it an F, and I would actually give it unwatchable. It is. I don't know that the film is an F film, because I also gave Crimes of the Future a D minus. I don't know that it is a D minus film because nobody wants to put the audio description on any of the streaming services. So there's audio description that exists, which is the most frustrating thing. At least Murder at Yellowstone City, I have no idea if there is audio description. But Crimes of the Future, I I know there's an audio description track that exists, and they're not using it, but it's unwatchable otherwise. So my experience with the film was low enough for me to go D minus, but later on in the year I was like, what am I grading? So really it's just unwatchable. And I'm building up, and now my worst film of the year. I think I've let out all my steam. I don't know. What else am I missing? Eraser Reborn was terrible. The RIPD2 was terrible. Um, uh, oh my god, Me Time. I'm glad I didn't miss Me Time. Me Time. With the talent that was involved, there was no reason for that. That was uncalled for. That was I feel personally attacked by Me Time. I don't know what happened. I don't. I still can't process how Mark Wahlberg and Kevin Hart got together and made a film that fucking terrible. I mean, absolutely. Like, if Kevin Hart or Mark Wahlberg showed up at my door, I would be like, Me Time was fucking terrible. Please leave. I just, I, it's unbelievable. I don't even understand. It was so, I don't know whose fault it is. Writer, director, actors, nothing about it worked. There was nothing in that film that was good. Um, so with that said, the streaming service that has the privilege of having the worst film of the year is Netflix. And the worst film of the year that I have said, and I've been using it. If you watch enough of my reviews, I've used it as a barometer. When a film gets low, when a film like Me Time exists, and I end up giving it a D minus, I literally would stand there and I'd be like, but it's not Marmaduke. I used Marmaduke as a barometer for every film, and so many films this year escaped the grade of F. Simply because technically I only gave 3 films an F, and one of those I would change to unwatchable because it was unfair. Technically, the only 2 films that deserve an F are Hot Take and Marmaduke, which I said Hot Take was my runner-up. Marmaduke is in a special place in hell. It has 4 directors. 4. Yeah, maybe I'm shitting on an animated kids movie, but it shits in the film, so I can shit on it. It thinks shitting is funny. It thinks that there's a scene where he shits into a trophy, and the stench is so bad that it like drifts through the arena, and it actually kills somebody. Like, it actually references that a lady just keels over dead. And that's the kind of humor that it thinks Marmaduke has. The voice casts all were terrible. Pete Davidson and J.K. Simmons, terrible. There was not one single iota of a thing where I could say this was redeemable, or that was a good idea, or that was a good choice. Nothing about this film worked on any level. It's one of the worst films I've seen in years. It's a film that, if we did have that kind of technology to erase little bits of a memory, I would erase Marmaduke. The time that I spent watching Marmaduke. It's the worst fucking thing I've seen in years. So I keep waiting for other critics to have it on their list. I'm like, was I the only one that bothered to watch this thing? And I thought, because Marmaduke is a brand, right? I was like, okay, well, Marmaduke is a legitimate brand, so let's see what they did with Marmaduke. So I took it seriously. I didn't go, oh, this is for little kids. You know, I wasn't like, I'm not trying to hop on, you know, the, I don't know, Paw Patrol crowd and be like, your movie was terrible. And it's like, well, you know, it's Marmaduke. The last time we adapted it, it was like a PG live action movie for families, for everybody. he used to be a comic strip character. This is a film that could have appealed to a broad audience, including adults, but they made this, and this film is my winner for Worst Picture of 2022. So now that I'm done, I'm not going to do worst directors, because it would have been honestly the 4 directors of Marmaduke. If you're like, the suspense is killing me, I was just going to name the 4 directors of Marmaduke. Sort of how the Oscars sometimes line up picture with director. It's anticlimactic. A lot of the directors from films I just mentioned would have been in the list. So just David Gordon Green. Imagine him being on the list, you know. But yeah, Marmaduke was terrible. So, what are your worst films of the year, and why was I the only person who watched Marmaduke? I've not seen a single worst of list, and I've also seen people who ranked animated features of the year, and no one ranks Marmaduke. I think I might be the only person in the world who saw Marmaduke. It's quite possible. So, you guys are all lucky. You got spared. Anyway, thanks for tuning in and to my rambling. And yeah, so I didn't go in and try to plan. Those were films off the top of my head, because if you really hate a film, you remember it. You remember that you hated it. So, and those are the films that have been pissing me off all year long. That's it. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you back tomorrow with actually a best of. I'm done. This is the last worst of. Tomorrow we're gonna celebrate something, but I got my worsts out of the year. I didn't want to wait till the end, so we're done. See you on the other side.